Hello everyone, Ember here, and today we've got some pretty exciting news to share, to be honest, and that is the name of the next set. So it is going to be called Temporal Forces, which is a pretty interesting name. Unfortunately, we don't have a logo or any cards to look at, but we can at least speculate based on, what's releasing in Japan as to what's going to be in the set. So basically, this will release on March 22nd. So do bear in mind that that's obviously quite a way away, but at the very least, we're getting Shiny Treasure, which only has 17 new cards at the end of January, which is pretty painful. But that set will feature loads of reprints, as well as, of course, shiny versions of those cards. So if you want to do a bit of a max rarity upgrade, I might do a video on Shiny Treasure closer to the release, but it's also just such a small set in terms of impact for the game that I'm kind of reluctant to do a video on it. But bear in mind that at the very least we have a collector set between now and then, so it's not too much of a painful wait. But yeah, Temporal Forces will of course release on March 22nd. Pre-releases will take place on March 9th to the 17th. So in the past, we would normally get a new set in February, which is the expected norm. But the release of January's special set, Paldean Fates, which is going to be Shiny Treasure in Japan and then Paldean Fates in the West, means Scarlet and Violet 5 will be pushed to March, basically. However, we should be back on schedule with May's Scarlet and Violet 6 set. So we'll see whatever set comes after this in May, which should be good. Of course, won't see card reveals from that until much later on in the day. I think we're several months off seeing cards for Scarlet and Violet 6, so, push that out of your mind for now, but we can at least speculate as to what's going to be in these sets. So our Temporal Forces set will be based on Japan's upcoming Wild Force and Cyber Judge, which will be dual sets releasing on January 26th. So roughly, a week before January 26th, we should see the full sets for these two sets, which is an important date because it means that we'll see the bulk of Temporal Forces, so kind of have that in the back of your mind. It also means that a month before January 26th, so the very start of January or even late December potentially, we should see, card reveals for these two sets, which means we'll start to actually see Temporal Forces reveals at the end of December, early January, as, I'm assuming so. It's been that way in the past. They could change things yet, but, I'm assuming that that's how things are going to go. So, yeah, so we should see cards revealed pretty soon, to be honest. So, Wild Force and Cyber Judge, which I think could be based on Walking Wake and Iron Leaves, which are like a dinosaur T-Rex version of Suicune, and then like a futuristic Robo-Dog version of Rizian. Kind of cool. Not sure I'm like a huge fan of these designs. I also don't know what type these guys are. I'll try and remember to leave it in a pinned comment if I remember, but yeah. I'm assuming that's going to be some kind of water type, although, types sometimes change in Paradox form. And then that'll be a grass type, hopefully. So we'll get water versus grass, potentially. I'd like to see that, but we also have some other information. So our set also might be based on Japan's upcoming Crimson Haze, which is a really cool name for a set, which will release on March 22nd. So if I go back up here, Temporal Forces. Okay, so Temporal Forces releases on March 22nd. Crimson Haze releases in Japan on the same day. I personally don't think we'll get anything from Crimson Haze in this set. I personally don't think we will. If we do, then that's obviously really cool because we'll basically be seeing cards revealed for this set as, mere weeks before we get them in the West, which is pretty crazy, to be honest, to think about it. But yeah, it's pretty wild. We'll get the Blood Moon Ursalona card, which could be cool. I think it is a fighting type, so fingers crossed it's a good card. These kind of like expansion sort of sets are usually a bit smaller, but hopefully this will be, a good set because it's a cool name and a very cool Pokemon. But yeah, interesting to see this. Both our Temporal set and Japan's Crimson Haze will release on March 22nd, which we just said. If our English set does feature Crimson Haze, this would be yet another English set releasing the same week as the Japanese set it's based on. The same situation occurred with Obsidian Flames and Paradox Rift, our last two sets. So it is very much looking like they want to sync the releases up. As someone who likes to make videos looking at Japan's format, this is bad news, unfortunately. But I'm sure for everyone else, this is good news because I have seen a lot of people, sort of complain about the fact that Japan basically gets to try out and experience new cards and then work out what the format is long before we get a chance to do that. So basically, it kind of removes that kind of like experience and testing, if that makes sense. So, like Japan were able to figure out pretty earlier on that God of War was going to be as good as we thought it was. And, stuff like Arcanine basically wasn't going to cut it at the end of the day. And it would have been nice to have more of a, an experience to test that out basically in the West. So if you're, if you're of that opinion, then this will, of course, be great news to you. In other words, of course, this could be another English set featuring a chunk of cards that released in Japan a few months prior. Then the rest is made up of cards releasing in Japan around the same time. If this pattern continues, this would mean our English set would sync with Japan's set every 3 months, with some exceptions, as some of our cards are often cut out because they make the English sets way too big. Because of Paradox Rift pre-releases, some of the secret rares were revealed before Japan to open them in Ancient War and Ancient War and Future Flash. This could also be the case for Temporal Forces, so we might see the secret rares from the set on March 9th during pre-releases, which would be funny. Then Japan will begin to open their Crimson Haze booster boxes 2 weeks later. So it basically just means that we could see cards for like Crimson Haze, if it is in the set, basically weeks before it even is revealed or in Japan stuff and released over there. So interesting stuff to bear in mind. Now, this article, for some reason, doesn't recap stuff that's already been mentioned, but I'll just go back to a slightly more outdated version of that article. But basically, on March 22nd, we'll see the release of Crimson Haze, and apparently, I'm not sure where this information comes from, but they think it will feature Pokemon from the Teal Mask. Now, the DLC of the Teal Mask introduced Ogopon, Ogie Doggy, Monkey Dory, and Pheasantipity Diplin, Poltergeist, Sinstcha, and Blood Moon Ursalona, which is this terrifying bear, basically. Presumably, this set will be headlined by one of those Pokemon, perhaps Blood Moon Ursalona. Yeah, I think it's a given that, Blood Moon Ursalona would be Crimson Haze. I mean, it's kind of, yeah. It feels kind of obvious. Hopefully, I'm correct on this. I don't like a complete idiot by saying that, but, I think Ogopon kind of deserves its own set because previously we also discovered trademarks for Night Wanderer and Mask of Change. No official information has been released from them yet. I'm presuming they'll be their main sets after Crimson Haze. So basically, if you want like a bit of an obvious speculation, Night Wanderer and Mask of Change will make up Scarlet and Violet 6, and that will be our May set. So yeah, it's very, very far into the future, but no, these DLC guys will make it into the TCG eventually. Hopefully this means we'll get a good grass type. I am praying to God we actually get a competitive grass deck again. Really hope we do. But yeah, Night Wanderer could feature Sinstcha, and Mask of Change is, obviously a reference to Ogopon. There is that turtle, which I've already forgotten the name of, from the other DLC. I'm not sure when that's appearing. It might be, getting its own set. It might just be a part of Crimson Haze. I have no idea. But, that turtle does look like a pretty cool Pokemon, so I'd imagine it's going to feature at some point. But yeah, unlike some of the Paradox Pokemon, I'm actually a massive fan of some of these designs, especially like the zombie Halloween kind of Ursalona. I think it's very, very cool. So yeah, I don't know why this information wasn't repeated for this article, but yeah, happy to see this. And, I'm excited to see, what these sets have. These are very cool Pokemon. Hopefully we see, someone here mentioned Terra type Paradox Pokemon potentially. So that could be cool. But yeah, it's been Power. Thanks for watching this video. Let me know what you think down below. Do you think these cards are going to be pretty good when we eventually see them? And yeah, thank you for watching.